All right, I finally figured it out. It took me like 2 hours. I had some time. I figured it out. I was doing the rent versus buying, and it turned out that home buying isn't really about money making. It's about how much money you don't lose. That determines whether the buying or renting is better. It's so funny. I mean, I've been selling real estate for like 15 years and I finally figured it out. Here you go. When you rent for 30 years, you lose about 1.5 million. When you own something in Portland, Oregon, you lose about $200,000. That's about more than seven times loss. That's the conclusion of today's video. Nobody talks about this, by the way. So I used the data of 6% 30-year mortgage, home price at $525,000, and I'm gonna do 3% annual home price appreciation as well as the rent increase. 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, 1,500 square feet single family home. You put 5% down payment in the initial cost. The major difference in the beginning is when you buy, you have to put down payment and closing cost. So I did 5% down payment with a $10K closing cost, which is $37,500. When you're renting, you don't pay anything, obviously. The monthly payment is $3,133 a month, and the renting equivalent home in the current market is about $2,650 a month. The operating expenses, which is basically repair reserve, homeowner's insurance, property tax, owning a home, about $600. So I calculated 19% of the monthly payment, which then increases 3% every year as well. But you don't pay that when you're renting. I excluded the utilities on both because whether you're renting or buying, you have to pay your utilities. When you do the 3% annual compound for 10 years, you add it up to $458,568 spent. That's the mortgage payment and then the operating expenses. On renting, you are paying $364,572. That's 10 years you're paying that. Let's look at the home value in 10 years. That $525,000 home became $705,556. That's the value in 10 years with a 3% annual appreciation. In the last about 15 years, it was actually 5% appreciated. So after paying mortgage for 10 years, loan balance dropped to $435,000. Equity gained in 10 years is this. So if you turned and sold this property in 10 years, you're going to make about $240,000 after selling fee. So I basically did a net gain, negative $188,000. How much you paid and how much you gained. The difference is negative about $190,000, which is actually equivalent to get to live in this place, right? However, when you're renting, there's no ownership or home value appreciation. What you spend is complete loss. So this is a net loss of $364,000 in 10 years. So in 10 years right away, about $180,000 difference. It's not about making money. It's about when you're renting, you lost $180,000 more. So it's the game of how much you want to lose. When you're renting, you win that game. You lose more. So you lost $180,000 more when you're renting just in 10 years. Let's continue and see the pain points. 20-year and 30-year cost. When you own a home for 20 years, the monthly payment, you've almost paid $945,000. In 20 years, you paid in rent $854,000. By the way, one of the big difference here is that when you own a home, the mortgage stayed the same, $3,133. Whether it's today or 20 years from now, You have to remember that $3,100 in 20 years, that value is much lower than right now. But you pay the same. The operating expense is going to appreciate more like inflating, right? So you combine the two, it's this. Now the renting, $854,000 in 20 years. $525,000 home appreciated to about $949,000. Renting, you don't own anything. The loan balance dropped to $279,000. Obviously, you don't have any loan balance, no debt, right? That's that. Equity gained in 20 years is $668,000, almost $69,000. The net gain is negative $276,000. But when you're renting, because you don't own anything, you don't get any equity gain, you lost about $854,000. So there's about $590,000 more lost when you're renting. That's pretty scary. That's like $500,000 lost more than owning a home. While we're going here, let's go all the way. 30-year cost. You paid $1.47 million in house payment and expenses. So it's not cheap, guys. But when you rent, you paid $1.66 billion in 30 years. Home value, the $525,000 home in Portland, Oregon in 2023, in 2053, sounds weird, 2053 is worth $1.27 million. Obviously, you don't own anything. Loan balance is voila, zero. You pay down. All that interest, all that principal, you pay down to zero. So net equity gained is that value. The home value is what you owe now, what you own, owe and own. What you own is basically $1.27 million property, free and clear. You own this property. When you rent, you don't own anything, obviously. And net gain is really negative, about $200,000. But when you rent, net gain is a negative $1.67 million. Do you see this? So the difference here is about, I should have done this math here. Let's just do negative $200,000 here. So you lost $1.46 million, almost $1.5 million more than owning a home. Do you see what I mean by it's not about making money? It's about how much less you lose when you're buying versus how much you lose. So if I translate this, the banks who lend us the mortgage, they figured it out how to make money. So the money right there that I spend is basically made by the banks. They make a lot more than that. Here you go. When you rent for 30 years, you lose about $1.5 million. When you own something in Portland, Oregon, you lose about $200,000. That's about more than 7 times loss. That's the conclusion of today's video. I have a pretty good feeling that this might be one of my best videos that I ever made, or I might ever make. To tell you, when you rent, you lose about 7 times more. So the question is, do you want to lose $200,000 in 30 years or $1.5 million in 30 years? One thing that I didn't even add here is the tax deduction. I don't know yet how to exactly calculate that. So if you add that in, by the way, this is not financial advice. With the tax in 30 years, my guess is anywhere between $50,000 or $70,000 more savings, which means that when you buy a home in 30 years, you lost about $140,000. If you rent, you still lose $1.5 million because when you rent, there's no tax deductions. And in my case, I use this home office as my business deduction, so I probably saved another 20 to 30,000. So in my case, using part of the home as a home office, I probably lost about probably $110,000 in 30 years. I'm in this house. This is about 60 year now, so I have a lot more to go. I have to pay the monthly payment to my bank every month. So I need to sell some more homes. Let me know if you need to buy or sell. But if I'm renting this house, I don't get the deduction and I lose $1.5 million. Guys, you need to remember this is based on 6% interest rate, paying at about median price of $525,000, using everything compounding except for the mortgage that doesn't change. Again, you need to remember that in 30 years, $3,000 might be worth, based on the inflation, I can't do the math, but more like equivalent to $1,800 of today's value. So that's what you need to focus on. It's not about money making, like I said. Home buying is not a money making. It's about getting a place to live, raise your family. You can call a place home, pretty expensive thing. But at the end of the day, you don't lose as much money compared to renting a home. I don't know how many times I need to say this. So don't try to time the market because nobody knows when the bottom is. Just find that right home. It's kind of like doing dollar cost averaging in stock market. The home buying should be just whenever you need a home, when you're in the right place to buy, right financial place to buy, buying something at the right price, good property, no matter what market does. Because when market goes really hot right now or cold right now, it doesn't matter. There's always good value homes and every homes have the right value. So you just make sure to work with a competent, knowledgeable, ethical realtor who can get you the best deal and you just find the best home that you can live for the next 30 years and do the dollar cost averaging in real estate. That's buying at any market when you're in the right position to buy. So this is my best video of my real estate agent's career. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this, hit that like button and subscribe, please. I do need that so I can sell more properties. Or at least you got something good. Maybe you'll buy me coffee down the road if you ever meet me. Later.